Madam Chair, Commissioners, Lead Council, audience, viewers out there, welcome to our daily proceedings. And good morning to all of you. Madam Chair, for our next item on the agenda, may now I yield the floor to you. Thank you.
Good morning to you all. I will now call on Honorable Sila to lead us in the Muslim prayers and Honorable Joyner to lead us in the Christian prayers. Thank you.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم خير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما صلى الله تعالى عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما برحمة اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق والخاتم لما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق والهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله حق قدره ومقداره العظيم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين آمين.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, I give you thanks this day because of your work on the cross, for I am clothed with your righteousness. I will sing your praises today because you are good, and your love endures forever. Give me a spirit of wisdom and discernment to make choices that honor and glorify you today. Thank you that within you are treasures of wisdom and knowledge, and you generously supply me with understanding through your Holy Spirit. I ask that you will supernaturally infuse in me with your strength and power to face this day. Amen.
Thank you so much. May we have the registrar to call on the witness.
Welcome, Mr. Witness. Good morning and welcome. This Commission of Inquiry to Local Government Councils and related matters. What is your religion?
Islam.
What language do you wish to make your testimony? English. Do you wish to swear or make an affirmation?
I wish to swear.
You wish to swear?
Yes.
Madam Chair, the witness wishes to swear by the Holy Quran. Okay, Mr. Witness, please repeat after me. Can you hold on to the Quran? And then repeat after me. I, Ibrahim Asanya,
I, Ibrahim Asanya,
do swear that
that
I will speak the truth,
I will speak the truth,
the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
So help me God.
You may be seated, please. Madam Chair, the witness has been sworn.
Thank you, Mr. Mbalo. Good morning, Ibrahim Sanya. You are welcome.
Good morning. Thank you.
I would now hand you over to the council for us to proceed on these proceedings today. Thank you so much.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
It is good to have you here before the commission to help or aid us in trying to understand some of the findings that your office had done. But before that, may we have your full name, please?
My name's Ibrahim Asanyang.
Where do you live?
I live at Sinchubalia.
What is your occupation, Mr. Yang?
I'm a civil servant.
Where do you work?
I work for the Gambia Public Procurement Authority.
Since when have you been working for the GPPA?
2008 to date.
What current position do you hold at the GPPA?
I am the Director of Procurement Policy and Operations.
Director of Procurement Policy and Operations.
Yes.
Since when have you been a Director of Procurement Policy and Operations?
2018.
18. Now, can you please tell us your educational background?
Thank you. I started schooling in Tujereng Primary School. From there, I proceeded to Crab Island, then Gambia High School. And from Gambia High School, I attended the Gambia College School of Education for primary teachers and higher teacher certificates, respectively. And finally, I got to the University of the Gambia, the then University Extension Program, where I graduated with a Bachelor's of Art.
Which year was that?
1999.
Let's proceed.
And then the University of Rome, where I obtained a master's degree.
University of Rome in Italy?
Yes, University of Rome in Italy, where I obtained an MSc in Public Procurement Management.
When was this?
2015.
2015. And this is your last degree or qualification?
Yes.
Yes. And you gave a statement to the commission, is that correct?
Yes.
If you see that statement, will you be able to recognize it? If you see the statement
Yes,
that
yes, I will.
yes.
I will.
Please, can you have a look at this document and advise us as to whether this is a statement that you gave to the commission?
Yes, it's the very one I submitted.
Chairperson, I apply to tender the statement of the witness, which he already identified, dated the 30th of May, 2023, into evidence as an exhibit.
The witness statement of Ibrahim Sanya is hereby admitted in evidence and marked as LGC/GPPA/IS/001.
As the commission places.
The said witness is dated the 30th of May 2023.
As the commission places. May we respectfully request Exhibit 001, IS001. Now, as the Director of Procurement Policy and Compliance, did you say and compliance?
Director of Procurement Policy and Operations.
And operations. How will you describe your job description?
As the director, I provide specialist advice, guidance, and service on leading procurement practices to management and all procuring organizations in the country, regularly reviewing standard documents to comply with the national obligations and commercial laws using standard international legal model. For example, you have the unilateral and World Bank models, supporting the implementation of the public procurement law and guidelines. Also responsible for the day-to-day management of the policy unit, collaborate with the career development unit in the implementation of policy guidelines relative to capacity development and improvement. Also reviewing national laws and government policy documents to recommend appropriate changes that are in line with the new public procurement law. Also give approval.
So, just to cut you short, we have your statement. It appears as if you're reading from your statement. Is that correct?
Yes, I am reading from this statement.
So basically, we have your statement.
Yes.
So when I ask you a question, it will probably be better if you can just summarize some of your key functions. I know you must have known this, or you will know this offhand.
Yeah.
Just your key functions. So if there is need to make reference to your statement, naturally will allow you to make reference to your statement, but some of your key functions. So now we are just, I'm just asking you questions orally, so that you just run me through some of the things that you do generally. You can just explain these things without reading verbatim from your statement. Is that correct? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Now, you spoke about a review, that you regularly conduct reviews with respect to standard documents to comply with national obligations. How do you do this?
Actually, what we do, we have, for example, the Public Procurement Act.
Yes.
We have regulations.
Right.
We also have other related policy documents. So periodically, these are reviewed, and if there are issues that we think should be adjusted to be in line with what prevails in the other parts of the world, then we suggest for amendments and the like. For example, if you look at the Public Procurement Act, since 2001, it changed several times. You have 2001, you have 2014, and so on and so forth. Likewise, the regulations. So we review, and if challenges or weaknesses are found, we, of course, suggest for reviews or amendments to be at par in.
Are you familiar with the procurement review or yearly review, post-review, if you may call it, that you conduct regularly, probably every year at the end of the year?
Yes, I am familiar with it. I am familiar with it.
Yes. So now we are currently dealing with procurement review reports of various institutions, to be very precise in relation to the area councils. There are about eight area councils. And your office, we have documentation in relation to the reviews you have conducted with respect to these area councils, spanning from various years. You're familiar?
Yes.
Yes. So before we had Mr. Tambura. You know Mr. Tambura, of course.
Yes.
He was giving us evidence in relation to the compliance review for various years in relation to various area councils. So we were reviewing the one for the year ended 31st December 2019 with respect to Birkama Area Council. Do you have that report with you on your laptop?
Yes, I have it.
Now, can you please open that document so that we can discuss some of the findings and specific findings in relation to Birkama Area Council? Are you there currently?
Yes, I am there.
Yes, please turn to page 22. Please let me know if you're on page 22.
Okay, I am there.
Now, when you conduct this, when I say you, I mean your office.
Yes.
Now, when you conduct these procurement reviews or compliance reviews, you will see that you have categories of either findings or statements here. So you have non-compliance issues that sometimes you may raise. So on page 22, you have a non-compliance issue in relation to Birkama Area Council. Can you please read us as to what was a non-compliant issue on page 22?
Now, Birkama Area Council did not develop specifications in some of the procurement of laptops and desktops, desktop computers in contravention of section 25(1), 2, 3, 4 of the GPPA Act 2018. And we have a table that shows some of the...
Before the table, why is there a need to develop specifications?
Actually, specifications are very important because these is what clearly specify the requirements that are needed for any procurement that you intend to do. It will specify things like the requirements, anyway, the requirements.
Why is it important to have specifications?
Specifications are important because they guide you. They tell you exactly what is needed, because otherwise you may buy things that are not fit for purpose. The specifications will tell you exactly what you want to buy, what it is meant for, the price, and so on and so forth. So it's very important. Otherwise, you may buy something that, of course, will not be able to do the purpose that it is meant for.
Now, you have a table just beneath the column for non-compliance, wherein 2 samples of goods being procured without specifications were being illustrated. Do you see that?
Yes, I have the table before me.
Yes. So the first item is what?
You have item 1, one desktop HP laptop and digital. 2, you also have 1 Dell laptop. Yes, these are the 2 items we have on the table.
What is the amount for the respect to the first item?
The first item is 131,675.
Please speak through the microphone so that you'll be very audible. Yes. What is the amount with respect to the first item?
For the first one, 131,675. 131,675.
What? Dollars?
Dollars.
The second one?
The second one amounts to $32,000.
Now, these 2 items were being purchased without having or developing specifications. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, again, if you look at these 2 items, you will see that they also have brand names.
Yes.
Do they?
Yes.
What is the first brand name with respect to the first item?
HP.
And the second one?
Dell.
Is there any problem with respect to branding?
Yes, there is.
Please tell us.
Now, brand names, procurement principles will require that procurements are subjected to competition, not only to get value for money, but also to give an opportunity for all potential dealers to compete. So basically, if you use a brand name, it means that you are eliminating anything that is not, for example, HP. There is no competition.
Yes. Now, the implications. You have 3 points. But just let us discuss, because the first point is very much general. We see that happen on most or throughout these reports. That is, value for money may not be attained. So basically, we may not even discuss that, because we've been discussing that almost all the time. And that the quality could be compromised. You have already outlined that point. The third point, which is award decisions is likely to be discretionary instead of responsiveness. What do you mean?
Now, for example, when a brand name is chosen, which should have been, of course, specified. The requirements should have been clearly specified, like I mentioned earlier. Now, a brand name is chosen. For some reasons, probably the buyers may know. So when a brand name is chosen, this means that you will not have any competition, one, and you cannot compare it with any other one to verify whether it is the best. Because in procurement, of course, we assume that any procurement is looking for the best in terms of quality and also the price and so on. So if a brand name is chosen here, it means that you may not have that opportunity to compare and be able to select the best from all the available opportunities.
And in fact, the individual or the institutions conducting the procurement may in fact be targeting a specific supplier.
Exactly.
Is that a possibility?
Exactly, yes.
Now, please, I refer you to page 25 of the same report. Are you on page 25?
Very soon, 20. Yes, 25.
What is a local purchase order?
Now, a local purchase order is a document, sort of, which is prepared to order. Once, for example, procurement processes are completed and a supplier identified, now a local purchase order will be prepared and sent to the supplier to indicate that he's been chosen under the identified item is being ordered for them to supply.
Can you please come again?
Now, what I mean is a local purchase order. Of course, when we look at local, referring to, of course, internal within the country. So it's a document which is prepared normally and by the procuring organization and sent to the supplier to confirm to the supplier that they want to, or the procuring organization intends to go into business, and in that they want the item will be indicated or mentioned to be supplied.
This basically comes after a particular contract had been won, is that correct?
Yes, yes.
So now basically what you're trying to do is to send information to...
Exactly.
Go ahead.
After all the procedures,
yes,
you request, of course, you subject it to probably competition and the like, and then evaluated and a supplier is identified. Now, when that happens, then you send the local purchase order to indicate that he or she is the winner, and now you are ordering whatever item is being mentioned.
Now,
Mr. Sanyang, is this LPO different from all the forms that when you do requisition, the forms you fill? Is it different from all those forms, like Form 101 and et cetera, et cetera?
Yes, it's different because Form 101, for example, is the requisition,
Yeah.
where you indicate what you wanted with all requirements, specifications, and so on, will be indicated and then sent to the potential suppliers, either pre-qualified or chosen in any form. But the 101 will be prepared and sent to the potential suppliers. So they will respond based on the requirements that you indicated on Form 101. If you look at the Form 101, it's called Request for Quotation. Now here, you are requesting quotations from the various suppliers. When that is done, you expect a response, offer, from those who collected or those who are given the Form 101. They will offer, but you will have different offers, of course. Now you will evaluate the offers, and then from there you choose the one that you think is more responsive to your requirements. That one will be chosen, and then you send a local purchase order.
Thank you.
so in summary, will I be correct to say, basically, once a supplier has been identified following the due process, then you will send some sort of a documentation form to inform the supplier that this is the, he or she, or the company has been awarded so-and-so contract, and these are the goods to be supplied, the specifications here and there.
Yes.
So that, why do you need a local purchase order then?
It's a legal document to show that you want to enter into contract with that supplier. It is important because documentation in procurement is very important. So, you can do it by telephone call and the like, but then things like you have other implications, negative implications using telephone conversation and the like. But then to have it legally recorded, it is important that communication is done on a form like Form 101.
May I draw your attention to the implications therein?
Okay.
Yes, so what are the implications?
One, the supplier may not deliver the goods or services on time, and two, may lead to conflict between the parties to the contract if one default in their responsibilities.
Now, let's move to other issues. On page 26, the sending of reports to GPPA. We learned that it is mandatory to send reports to GPPA. Are these reports supposed to be sent yearly or quarterly, or what is the requirement?
According to the Act,
yes,
procuring organizations are obliged to be reporting to the authority on monthly basis on procurements that have not been subjected to their review. I think Mr. Tambura must have told you that we have different kinds of review, post and prior and so on. And he must also have told you about the thresholds and the like.
Yes.
So that procurements like single source and request for quotations, in most cases, if they are within the threshold, they are done within the procuring organization without coming to the authority.
Yes.
So the law requires that on monthly basis, such procurements that were not subjected to the authorities' prior approval be sent on monthly basis. And here you have the Form 006 for single sources and Form 200 for the RFQs.
So
these are expected to be sent on monthly basis.
So in the case of Birkama Area Council, they don't follow these requirements. for the year 2019?
Yes, they have not been sending their monthly reports on.
Now
monthly
on page 27, with respect to the heading value for money, do you see that?
Yes, yes.
The first point is they don't engage on market surveys.
Mm-hmm.
Why are market surveys important? What is a market survey and why is it important?
A market survey is trying to find out about what prevails in the market in terms of availability of goods or services, in terms of their prices, in terms of their quality, and so on and so forth.
So then it's important for a procuring authority to know who they will award a particular contract to based on all of these factors, one of which is pricing, the prevailing price at the time.
Yes, it is very important to conduct a market research.
Now, the last point. Can you please read the last point loud, please?
Prices of most procured items were exceptionally high.
Yes, for the year 2019, your office found out that for Birkama Area Council, most of the procured items, the prices were exceptionally high. Can you please discuss more on that further?
Actually, what our reviewers observe is that they look at all the transactions that the Birkama Area Council conducted over the period under reviewed. And then for some of the items, they try to look at the amount paid compared to what prevails in the market. Because, of course, we are all living in the Gambia, and when a price is given, you will be able to, of course, also compare it with what prevails in the market. So the review revealed that some of the items, the prices, far exceed what prevails in the market.
Now, please proceed. Go ahead.
Yes.
Now, why do you think that is the case? When you have a procuring authority routinely purchasing items or procuring items at a very, or going by the word that you use, exceptionally high price. Why do you think that is the case?
Actually, one, there will be no value for money. Why? Because value for money...
Not the implications. Now we want to understand why an institution will now engage in regularly procuring goods or services, for in this case goods, at a very, not only high price, but exceptionally high price. What will you in fact say will amount to an exceptionally high price? Just give an example of an exceptionally high price.
One, definitely we know that if the prices are exceptionally high, it may be caused by probably one, no proper market research was conducted.
No proper market survey.
Yes, no proper market survey may not be conducted. And number two, probably it was deliberate. I'm not very sure, I'm not accusing, but it could be deliberate for some probably financial gains. It's all possible.
Yes, so you are saying in some situations, forget Birkama for a second, generally in the procurement, in procurement environment, generally, if you have procurement authorities conducting procurement on a daily basis or within the span of a particular period, if you have an instance wherein goods or items are being procured at exceptionally high price. Maybe it could be an honest mistake in the fact that they failed to conduct market surveys, which they were required to conduct, because if they'd have done that, they would have known the prices generally. Yeah. But the other point as well is that, in fact, these things could be a deliberate act to have financial gains, which would be fraudulent in nature.
Yeah, but apart from those 2 points, it could also be that there has been a sort of bid rigging, collusion between bidders. For example, you have 3 bidders and they know each other and they know that quotations are collected from only those 3 people. It's possible that they can collude and deliberately increase prices unnecessarily.
But that will only come when the procurement authority followed the rules and regulations in trying to make sure that what is required, or the required procedure for a particular procurement method is followed. Then now that is independent from the procurement authority, but then the fault lies at the with respect to the bidding, or the suppliers, when they have monopoly over certain goods. Is that correct?
Yeah, but I want to believe that if proper procedures are followed, if proper procedures are followed, it is unlikely that things like that will happen.
Exactly.
If proper procedures are followed.
Yes. On page 28. So page 28 will now make us understand better page 27 with respect to purchasing or procuring goods at a very, very high price. Because page 28 is with respect to contracts management. So it is a requirement that there has to be a contracts committee. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, there were non-compliance issues that you found in relation to the review for 2019 with respect to contracts management or committee. What are these issues?
Bullet number 1, inspection and acceptance committees are not established as part of the contracts management procedures in contravention of Regulation 127 and 128.
Okay. Number 2?
Supplier performance review are not carried out to inform future improvement of the suppliers on completion of their deliveries.
Number
as
3?
required by the regulation.
Yes. The third
no
point?
Evidence of contract management team in place. And the last one is no contract document in place, especially for the procurement of fuel and fuel from Petrogas.
Now, let's start with the last point. It was found that there were no contract documents in place, but most especially with respect to fuel from Petrogas. Again, which means all goods or services being procured during this period for 2019, it did not follow the required procedure. Yeah. But then, in fact, the reason why you have all these failures in relation to the supposedly present contracts committee is, let me ask the question. In fact, it appears as if there was no contracts committee in place. Was there any? You can see the third point.
You can have a contracts committee, but for every procurement, you can have a subcommittee responsible for or to manage that particular contract.
You said in this finding that no evidence of contract management team in place. What does that mean?
There is no evidence that for their transactions or the various procurements, there is no management team established to oversee those procurements.
So it will be fair to conclude that as far as you're concerned, for 2019, as at the time of conducting the review, compliance review, there was no contracts committee present.
I think there is a difference between a contracts committee, and a contract management team.
Please tell us the difference.
You can have a contracts committee. And of course, part of their responsibility is to ensure proper management of all contracts. But you can have a contracts committee, and it is not the whole contracts committee members who should be part of every contract management. A contracts committee can identify some members within or outside the contracts committee to manage a particular project.
So,
I don't know whether you understand what I am talking about.
Let me ask questions,
Mr.
yeah.
Sanyan, can you
Yes.
refer us to the legislation that makes the distinction, or in your regulations, that makes the distinction between the contracts management team and the contracts committee? Because I think when Mr. Jaite and Mr. Tambura came, they referred to the law making reference to the setting up of the contracts committee. So if you can refer us to the regulations of the law that makes a distinction and gives an idea of what you are saying so that we can follow. Thank you.
Now, if you look at section 47 of the Act,
Yes, please proceed.
47 subsection 1,
Yeah.
a contracts committee shall be established in every procuring organization in the Gambia, supported by specialized procurement unit to be established in the organization. And procuring organizations with low levels of procurement may jointly establish a shared procurement unit.
Okay.
And the
Sorry, Mr. Sanyang, I am
Yes.
a bit lost because I'm looking at the Gambia Public Procurement Act 2022 and
No.
Section 47. Huh?
Now, the procurements in question, the years in question,
Yes.
were governed by 2014 and 2018 Amendment Act, not 2022.
Okay. Okay. All right. Can you please read that, because the legislation I have before me is the 2022. Can
Okay.
you please go through that one again?
Now,
Once more?
Section 47(1), of course, that will show the requirement for the establishment of a contracts committee. But then you have the functions on another page, which, of course, I will also draw your attention to. So for this one, you have a contracts committee shall be established in every procuring organization. So the word shall meaning all procuring organizations are required, it's mandatory to establish contracts committee. And according to the Act, the contracts committee have 3 permanent members: the head of the institution, or the CEO, or the permanent secretaries for some institutions. You have the director of finance, somebody responsible for budgets or finances, and you have the procurement officer. These are the 3 permanent members of a contracts committee. But then, the law further provides that other members can be co-opted when the need arises. So here you can, or the law allows them to co-opt anybody that they feel have the expertise for technical advices and so on and so forth. But these are the 3 members. So here, when you have the 3 members, others may be co-opted. So among the members that are co-opted together with the permanent members, a subcommittee can be created for a particular procurement, to oversee a particular procurement. And these include what? From the starting, including the management of that particular contract. So what I am trying to establish is possible. There is a contracts committee. But once a contract is awarded, all the other procedures are followed and the like, and a contract is awarded, Brikama Area Council did not go further to establish another sub-unit that will be in charge of that particular procurement until the end, up to the time when the goods or services are delivered and even verified. So that is what we are talking about. There could be a contracts committee, but a subcommittee is not probably created to be in charge in terms of managing that particular contract until the end.
So is it the law that there should always be a subcommittee from the contracts committee to manage the procurement process?
Yes.
What is
depending
the law?
On the complexity or the nature of that particular program.
Can you refer us to the law or the regulation?
Now, Regulation 127 and 128 provides for the establishment of
$120.
127 and 128.
That is Regulation 2018.
Yeah.
Are you referring to Regulation 2018?
Regulation 2019.
Okay. Okay, what did you say?
Regulation 20. Unfortunately, I didn't bring my... Now, in short, these regulations provides for...
Sorry, let me just clarify. In 2018, you have regulations pursuant to Section 65 of your Act, Amendment Act. And in 2019, this 2018 was amended?
No, that was 2018.
So there is no 2019, it's 2018.
It's 2018. It's 2018.
It's 2018 you are referring to?
Yes, it's 2018.
Okay, so but the 2018 section 127, what I have may be different from what you have. I stand to be corrected. Section 127 is procedures for local purchase orders and petty contracts. Can you see that?
No, actually, I have the act, but not the regulations with me here.
Okay, so you are not quoting from the right legislation.
No, actually, by our report, yes.
By your report, what did you highlight?
By our report, you have regulations 127 and 128 talking about the establishment of contract management procedures.
Okay. Yes, but that is different from the committee that you are talking about. So that is why I wanted clarity. You are saying that, you have read the law which referred to the setting up of the contracts committee.
Yes.
And you are saying that there should be a subcommittee to manage the process of procurement. Yes, and I ask you to refer this commission to the particular regulation or the law which says after the setting up of the committee, that is the procurement committee, you should set up a further subcommittee to manage the process. That is the question I ask.
Now, if you look at the provisions,
Yes.
that the composition of a contracts committee,
That is understood.
yes, 3 permanent members,
Yes.
and then the others can be co-opted when the need arises. So when there is a need to set up a subcommittee for contract management, yes, you can do so.
Okay. But it's not really specifically provided for. But where there is a need, the contracts committee can set up a further subcommittee.
Yes.
Thank you. It's now clear.
Mr. Sane,
Yes.
what is the role of the contracts committee?
The roles of the contracts committee.
Mr. Sane, you can just tell us, like I said earlier on, generally, basically, what you know about the roles of a contracts committee.
Actually, the contracts committee is wholly and solely responsible for all procurements in a procuring organization. They are responsible for procurement planning. They are responsible for identifying procurement procedures and processes. They are responsible for drawing specification. They are responsible for defining their requirements and so on and so forth. And they are responsible for contract management.
Do they approve procurement at the international level?
Yes.
And then the composition of the contracts committee, one of the permanent members is the SPU, is that correct?
Yes.
The Specialized Procurement Unit.
The head of the Specialized Procurement Unit.
Yes. In effect, of course, the SPU.
Yes.
Now, what is the legal requirement? Is it that there has to be a contracts committee or there has to be a contracts management or sub-team?
There should be a contracts committee in every procuring organization.
That is the requirement.
Yes.
And so when you go into to conduct compliance review, your interest is as to whether there's a contracts committee or not.
Yes, that is one of our interests.
Yes. So even where, assumingly, they set up a committee, a subcommittee, which is not in fact the case, because the requirement is they can subdelegate that to the SPU. That is the requirement, the Specialized Procurement Unit. But let's assume they can even set up a subcommittee. The overall approval will have to be given by the contracts committee. Is that not correct?
Yes.
And so therefore, that is what you look at when you conduct this review. Whether there is a contracts committee, whether approvals were being granted.
Yes.
So.
We want, in the first place, we established that a contracts committee do exist or not.
Yes. So unless and until there is evidence that in this particular procurement conducted, it was the contracts committee authorized a subcommittee or sub-management team, which in turn approved and so on and so forth. Your primary focus is, with respect to procurement, is whether contracts committees have been following the due process and whether they have approved the ones that they are supposed to approve.
Okay, let me make this clarification. Now, the subcommittee that I talked about is for contract management. This is different from the SPU. Now, for the SPU, yes, the contracts committee can look at the value and nature of a procurement and set a threshold for the Specialized Procurement Unit. And in that case, the SPU can proceed without coming to the
Is there any
contrast
evidence
committee.
that in 2019 there was any sub committee set up by the contrast committee for 2019?
No.
Now, is there any evidence that in fact there was a contrast committee in place for 2019?
Yes, we have evidences.
Yes, please refer us with respect to the compliance report for 2019, where we have the contrast committee being set up. Do you see it?
No, I'm trying to go over the report to see.
You can turn to page 5, from 4 to 5. You see, after the entry meetings, generally, is it not correct that your team will outline the various strategies, the methodology, and the team you find on the ground when you conduct a compliance review? Is that not usually the practice?
Page 5. Yes, on page 5 you find the names of those in attendance at the entry meeting. And
yes.
In most cases, these are the people.
No, let us not, Mr. Sane.
Yes.
Please, may I have your attention?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
May I have your attention?
Yes.
Let us not try to speculate. So we go by what the report that your office gave to us. So we are not here to be making speculations. Where we will need you to come in with your expertise in relation to what obtains in a particular situation, we will ask you that question. Now, we cannot speculate as to whether, in fact, there's a possibility that there was a contrast committee. If there was a contrast committee, the report will clearly highlight it. So it is not for you to say, or for me to say, that these names may constitute, or usually they constitute the contrast committee. That would not be very correct, sir. So
now,
at the entry meeting, what are the names?
Modu Jonga, Chief
Yes.
Executive Officer.
Please proceed.
Ibrahim Sawane, Director of Administration. Alaji Jeng, Director of Finance. Sidu Kunta, Procurement Manager. Lamin Suso, Manager of Finance. Adam Abojang, Director of Planning. Lamin Singate, Council Clerk.
Now, turn to page 6. You will also see the staff directly involved in the review process.
Page 6, yes.
Yes. Do you see that?
Yes.
Now, do you see any table in relation to the composition of the contrast committee?
Actually, if you go back to the first table here, the first table.
Yes.
That is the
on
names,
page, on page.
Names of those.
Please refer us to the page, please.
That's page 5.
Yes. Go ahead.
Names of those in attendance at the exit meeting.
Yes.
Now, when we review, at the end of our review, we conduct meetings with members of the contrast committee.
Yes.
And like I said earlier, there are certain people that are automatically members of the contrast committee. And these include the CEO, as you can see there, and the Director of Finance and the Procurement Officer. automatically, their names are there. Those are automatically members.
Of what?
As provided for by the Act. Members of the Contrast Committee.
These are names that are supposed to be part of the Contrast Committee as per the Act. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Are they, in fact, part of the Contrast Committee on, for Brikama Area Council for 2019?
I assume, yes.
Why do you assume that?
Because as the law provides, the CEO or head of every institution should be automatically a member of the or head of the contrast committee. And in this case,
let's just cut this short. Was there a contracts committee present when you conduct the review for 2019?
These are the members that are present.
Was there a contracts committee present for 2019? Do you have evidence that there was a contracts committee present? I am not saying there was no contracts committee, but again, you are not supposed to be coming here and telling us things that you're not sure of, just to speculate. Was there a contracts committee present for 2019? It's a simple question. Do you have evidence of that? If you have it, just show us and we move on.
What I am saying is, when we go out for reviews, we have two very important meetings. One, the entry meeting, and the exit meeting.
Let me show you the compliance review for the year ended 31st December 2019 with respect to Carnifing Municipal Council. Dated the 15th day of February 2021. It is in evidence. On page 13. On page 13. Read the heading of the table. It's in evidence already. Read the heading of the table.
Okay. Contrast committee members for the year under review.
And who are the members?
One, you have Mrs. Senabu Martin Sonko,
yes.
who is the CEO.
Yes.
Mr. Ablai Kebe.
Yes.
Vice chairman, member.
Yes. How many do you have altogether?
We have about 10.
10. And the heading says what again? Please repeat it louder.
Members of the contrast committee
for the year
under review.
And that is for KMC?
Yes.
For which year for KMC?
For the year under review, and that would be year ended 31st.
So where you have a contrast, can I have the document? Where you have a contrast committee for any institution that you conduct compliance for, especially the area councils, you put it on the document. It's very clear. Now, do you see an example of this, having a contrast committee for Brikama for 2019? Do you see that here? Do you see a table constituting the contrast committee for Brikama?
Now, the reports are written by different...
Mr. Sane.
Okay.
Exactly. No. You don't see it. So we just move on. Is that okay?
Okay.
All right. Now, please turn to page 27.
Page 27.
No, we were on page 28. Now, let's go to the specific findings on chapter 4 on page 30.
Page 30?
Yes. Where you have samples of findings in relation to the various procurement being conducted for the year 2019 for Brikama Area Council. Are you there?
Page 30.
Yes. The chapter is chapter 4. The heading is specific findings. Are you there?
Yes, findings, yeah.
Now the category of this first finding is goods. The amount is $70,150. The awarded contractor is Far Moro Gen. The method is RFQ. And the tender number is PV number 179. There were non-compliance issues in relation to the request for quotation method being used. And what are those?
The procured.
Council, sorry,
Yes.
Mr. Sanyas. Sorry. Before we proceed on the specific findings, may I just ask Mr. Sanyang to elaborate on at page 29. There are issues, you said, other related issues. Having gone through documents presented for the period under review, we discovered that all the fuel transactions were not submitted to the review team because what was provided reads a total of 4,201,966.49 bututs, while the fuel transactions on the general ledger reads a total of 9,545,933.78 bututs. Can you please explain the differences here, over 5 million that you cannot account for during this period under review?
Okay. Now, when we go for review, and as you can see on the population, we cover almost all the files that were shown to us. But when it comes to fuel procurement, it was discovered that the total sum of the documents presented is less than the amount spent for fuel on the general ledger. That is one of the things that we discovered. The total, as per the documents submitted, is less than the total on the general ledger. And that may suggest that there are documents that are not presented to the review team.
And why was that?
Well, probably is because of poor filing systems. They cannot account for those documents. Because in procurement, the law requires that a special filing system be adopted.
So is that the only reason that you can impute as to why they could not present to you over $5 million in missing of documents? That is the only reason? Poor filing system?
Now, when I talk about poor filing system, it may have different reasons for that.
Yes, we
It
want
could
you
be
to...
it could be deliberate that some of the documents were hidden and were not. They don't want us to see them. It's all possible.
In fact, I was going to leave that for the last discussion. So let's just discuss it once and for all. It is good that the chairperson has already brought it up right now. You said one of the reasons for the difference, just to have it again, what your team found on the ground was evidence of an amount of $4,201,966.49 bututs being evidence of fuel being purchased. We will talk about the procedure, in fact, not being followed at some point. But then this is one of the issues. But then the entire fuel transactions on the general ledger is 9,545,933.78 bututs. You are saying one of the reasons is that they didn't present that the other documentations to prove that.
Yes.
And probably the reason why they do that is because of what? They didn't want you to know.
They may not. That may be one of the reasons. The other reasons could be proper or due process is not followed. Because
Yes.
if due process is followed right from the beginning, for example, the preparation of requisition forms, then approval of the head of the institution, you have the quotations collected and evaluated, and then award decisions are taken and the contract is awarded. That is a full documentation, and that could be kept in the records. But if the right procedure is not followed, probably there is no formal requisition, and then probably they went straight and buy from one supplier, and so on and so forth, then there will be no documentation. But like I said earlier, the documents could not be found, and the reasons for the documents not being shown to us, definitely the authority cannot be in a position to tell exactly why those documents are not given to us.
You may not know why, specifically why, but you will definitely know as an expert in this area, in procurement, as to why, what are the possible reasons as to why certain situations may arise in a certain procurement being carried out by a specific institution or individual. Because when I asked earlier on, you said, in one of the questions I asked, you said possibly for financial gains. Is that a possibility in this situation?
Yeah, it's one of the possibilities, together with the other two main possibilities that I told you. One of them being, if proper procedures are not followed, it can lead to this one.
Because if there are documentations, would there be any reason as to why, if there are documentations to back these entire transactions of 9 million or about 10 million, if you round it up entirely, if there are documentation, would it not be on the advantage of the procuring individual or authority to provide evidence that in fact we have documentations to prove that this is the actual amount, $9 million or plus, is the actual amount that we have spent on fuel? Would that not be on their advantage?
Yes, it would.
So they wouldn't just have these documents to back their position and then just keep it in a particular folder, secret folder, and not show you, because that would not be in their advantage.
I'm saying that is one of the possibilities.
Now, I'm just saying that
the documents are not available.
I am just saying
all.
that the logical conclusion is that once you are not given evidence to back this entire purchase, it's because it does not exist as far as you're concerned.
They can be existing, but hidden for some reasons. But it's also possible that due process is not followed and the documents are not in place.
With respect to the due process not being followed, it's not even a possibility. It actually exists. They did not follow due process. Am I right to say that? In this situation, due process was not followed. Or do you have evidence that due process was followed in this situation?
Now, due process could be followed. For example, if you look at the amount involved, it falls within RFQ. No, sir?
What is RFQ?
A request for quotation.
Yes.
It falls within RFQ,
yes.
which should not be subjected to our prior approval. Okay, they can continue without the GPP approval. So, if even the due process here, I am not talking about whether the prices are inflated or so on, but then if there is a requisition, quotations collected, and for some reasons, probably the evaluation is biased towards a supplier and so on and so forth. In this case, they have taken the right course to get the documentation and the like. But because they don't want us to see the evaluation report and so on, probably the documents are in place but then hidden so that we cannot see them. It's all possible.
See, again.
Sorry, let me just intervene. Mr. Sanyang, this is our reason for sitting here, may I remind you, please, is to find out what are the lapses and what are the issues. And as technicians, you are supposed to provide to the Commission very direct and concise answers as to compliance, because that is why you conduct the review.
Yes.
So, kindly, what we are trying to ask here is to ascertain whether the reasons as to why you could not access information to show you the evidence of the 5 million that was purportedly used to purchase fuel. Because going by the record, you have also indicated that distribution might not have been done. The fuel might not have been even distributed. You said that in the report. So that is the reason. That is why we are asking you to elaborate as to what is the proper process and procedure to have followed and what is the consequences of not following those proper procedures. Thank you. Councillor, you can proceed.
Mr. Sani,
Yes.
we go by the report that your office prepared. Do you follow? We are going by the report
Yes.
that your office submitted to us. Do you understand that?
Yes, yes.
Now, we are only discussing findings as per the report. Where we need your expert opinion, of course, generally we'll ask you.
Yes, yes.
Do you understand that? Now, we are not here to speculate, I said earlier on. So you tell us, for this particular transaction, where you have a difference of more than $5 million, in your recommendations, you said all fuel purchases should be tender, by way of tender. Is that not correct?
Yes, it's correct.
Which means the fuel purchases were not by way of tender.
They were not tendered.
Was due process followed?
No.
Good. Because that, based on your recommendations, you can assume whether due process was followed or not. So you said all framework agreements should be requested from GPPA because that was not done in this situation. That is why you recommend for that to be done. Is that not correct?
Yes, you are correct.
That is a proper fuel logbook should be created to monitor and control the movement of fuel stock level. So all these recommendations, or for the most part of it, it is because of the fact that they didn't follow the due process. That is why you recommend that they follow these procedures.
Correct.
Good. Now, let's move to the specific findings. I drew your attention with respect to the $70,150 worth of goods that was being procured.
Page.
Page 30. And there were non-compliant issues with respect to that.
Yes.
The first part is it was not part of the procurement plan as stipulated in the regulation. And you have the third point, the quotation was not approved by the contracts committee. Do you see that?
Yes.
Now, the fourth point, please take us to the fourth point.
There was no delivery receipt as stipulated in Section 35(2) of the GPPA Act 2018.
Just to hear your part, what is a delivery receipt or note?
Now, delivery note is a document that is, of course, signed when goods are delivered to ascertain that a particular good is received.
So that was absent for this transaction.
Yes.
So first you have an amount like $70,150,
Yes.
but then there is no evidence of delivery of that particular item. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Now, page 31, you have the management response. Did they agree with your findings?
Yes, they agree.
Now, 4.1, the procurement of spare parts. What is the amount?
762,000.
And who was the contractor?
Sorry, 26,000. Beg your pardon.
Who was the contractor?
26,000.
The contractor?
Jamal Baden Enterprise.
What is the method of procurement?
Request for quotation.
And what were the problems with respect to that that particular procurement that was being done or carried out?
Now, bullet point 1, the procured item was not part of the procurement plan as stipulated in regulation 25.
So this is a general problem for
Yes.
2019 for
Yes, yes.
for Brikama Area Council.
Yes.
And the third one,
The quotation was not approved by the contracts committee.
will I be correct to say that throughout this report we have seen that, in fact, there was no approval for, in fact, all of the transactions we have seen for 2019 by the supposed contracts committee that was supposed to be present for 2019? Will I be correct to say that?
Yes, yes.
And if you turn to page 32, were there minutes of the contracts committee meeting?
The second to the last point,
Yes.
there was no minute of the contracts committee meeting as stipulated in Gambia Public Procurement Regulations and the GPPA Amendment Act 2018.
So this amount as well, with respect to this, the procurement of spare parts did not follow the due process. Do you know who approved, or would you know who approved these transactions?
No, I don't know.
Now, the procurement of tires, do you see that? Page 32.
Yes, 4.2.
What is the amount?
105,000.
The awarded contractor,
Again, Jamal Badin Enterprise.
what is the method of procurement?
Request for quotation.
Was there any problem with respect to this procurement?
Whether there was?
Were there any issues, non-compliance issues?
Yes, you have the non-compliance issues, about
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them.
Please, briefly.
One, the procured item was not part of the procurement plan as stipulated in Regulations 25(1) of the Gambia Public Procurement Regulations and Section 29. You have 2, the quotation was not approved by the Contracts Committee. 3, there was no inspection committee to inspect the goods as stipulated in Regulations 133 and 136. There was no minute of the Contracts Committee meeting as stipulated in Gambia Public Procurement Regulations and the GPPA Amendment Act 2018. And the last one, no evaluation report generated for this procurement.
Now, again, very similar findings. Is that correct? We see again no evidence of the Contracts Committee.
Yes, yes, yes.
Needless to say that there was no approval, because if there is no evidence of the Contracts Committee, then we would even be talking about the approvals. On page 33.
Yes, 33.
What is the amount?
400,000.
What is the category?
Goods.
The supplier?
Bubaba, general merchandise.
Yes. So, yes, please run us through the non-compliance issues. Because the method is RFQ.
Yes, RFQ, the same. The procured item was not part of the procurement plan. 1, the quotation was not open quotations were not open in a register of Form 004 as stipulated in Regulation 35(2) and 29 of the GPP Amendment Act, that is the Act, and Regulations 25. The quotation was not approved by the Contracts Committee. There was no inspection committee to inspect the goods as stipulated in Regulation 133 to 136. Purchase order was not raised by the end user department as stipulated in Gambia Public Procurement Regulation 28 and Section 12(7) and 2 of the GPPA Act. GPPA forms such as 101 and 102 were not attached. There was no minutes of the Contracts Committee meeting as stipulated in Gambia Public Procurement Regulations, Amendment Act 2018. No evaluation report generated for this procurement, and there was no delivery receipt as stipulated in Section 35(2) of the Gambia Public Procurement Act 2018.
So we discussed most of these, the lack of delivery receipt is reoccurring, we have seen. Evaluation report, also a problem. Minutes of contracts committee meeting. We have, of course, individuals purporting to be conducting contracts committee functions. But then we see no minutes of meetings for most, to be fair, for most of the transactions. Is that correct?
Yes.
That we have discussed even today.
Yes.
Now, the compliance points, you only have one point that you highlighted, that the procurement method is within the threshold as stipulated in Section 38 and 45 of the GPPA Act.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that the only point that they complied with?
Well, as far as this is concerned, yes.
Right. Now, turn to page 34. Where you have the procurement of tuna.
Yes.
At an amount of $14,375.
Yes.
The contractor is Primary Stationery Limited, and it's RFQ, the method.
Yeah.
The non-compliance issues were very similar. That there is no purchase order.
Yes.
No minutes of the contracts committee again. No evaluation report. And there was no delivery receipt. You have highlighted, or you've agreed with me that when you don't have a delivery receipt, there is no evidence of the where the item purchased is in fact being delivered for the use of the institution. Is that correct?
Yes, it's part of the conclusions.
Yes.
But the order could be, you cannot even verify whether the goods that are received are of the right quality, yes, or even quantity are specified in.
Yes.
Of course, we talked about Form 101,
yes,
where you're supposed to prepare your requirements. So you may not be able to verify whether. And
there's no even evidence of approval by the contracts committee for even this transaction, like
yes,
all the other transactions. Yes, so just below that, you have the hiring of bulldozer for clearing of Tambana dump site. The amount is 65,000. The contractor, Camara and Sons Company Limited, is a single source. That is the method of the procurement. Yes, what are the issues in relation to the non-compliance of the GPPA Act or regulation?
Now, the non-compliant issues are almost the same as the ones that we indicated.
Except for point 2?
For point 2, the procurement method is above the threshold, yes.
What should
single source.
What should be the threshold again?
The threshold for single source.
Yes.
For goods and services is $20,000 is for goods and services.
And this is way above that.
Yes.
And again, there were no minutes of the contracts committee, so there is obviously no evidence of approval.
Yes.
And what is the response of the management?
They noted meaning agreement to our findings.
Now, 4.6 on same page, procurement of office stationery, 76,590. Awarded contractor KJN, single source. Again, is this below, within, or above the threshold?
It's above the threshold of single source.
No evidence again of the delivery receipt. On the fourth point, if you turn on the other page.
Yes, there was no delivery receipt as stipulated in Section 35(2).
And the management response is the same, noted.
Yes.
So procurement of 5 HP 83A tuna. Again, a single source, $32,000 is $32,775. KGN is a contractor.
Yes.
That is above the threshold, is it?
Yes, it's above the threshold.
And the same problems, no inspection committee, no purchase order, no procurement method is above the threshold, and the item was not specified on the procurement plan.
Yes.
Now, the 4.8 procurement of inner tube, $3,000 is Ansumana Konjira, single source. The non-compliance, same problems. There was no inspection, no delivery receipt, and no purchase order raised. Is that correct?
Yes, but maybe this was an oversight by the team. If you look at the amount, $3,000 is.
Oversight by your team, you mean?
Yes, maybe the team
Okay.
of reviewers.
Yes.
Because if you look at the amount involved, it's
Yes.
$3,000, which is within the single source threshold.
So what is the oversight here?
The oversight is the threshold because single source, the $3,000 is within the single source threshold.
I want to understand what the oversight is. Did they say it is above the threshold? Did the report indicate that the amount is above the threshold?
Okay. They are saying that of course, it's not planned for.
Yes.
For the second quotation and the.
To Mr. Sanya.
Yes.
They said under that point is there is compliance because it's within the threshold. If you look at bullet point 1, it says compliance.
Yes.
Thank you. Proceed.
So
Counsel.
with respect to the threshold, the report is correct that it is still
Yes,
within
it's within the threshold. That one is within.
Exactly. So I just want to align myself with the chairperson. When you said there was an oversight, there was in fact no oversight. Turn to page 38, 4.9. Procurement of Samsung mobile phone. How much is the amount?
12 million.
12.
Sorry, 12,000. 12,000.
$12,000.
Yes.
And of course, the category is goods. The contractor is Global Electronics.
Yes.
The method is single source. What were the problems?
The quotation was not open in a register of Form 003 as stipulated in.
Please speak louder.
The quotation was not opened.
Yes.
In a register of Form 003 as stipulated in Regulation
Yes.
35.2.
What is the third point?
There was no delivery receipt as stipulated in Section 35.2 of the GPPA Amendment Act.
And there was no inspection committee to inspect the goods?
Yes.
That's the fourth point. How about the fifth?
Purchase order was not raised by the end user department as stipulated in Regulation 28 of the GPPR and Section 12.7.
Now, for just going by your general recommendations, for the year 2019, was there any procurement plan for Birkam Area Council?
No.
Now, Honorable Chairperson, that brings us to the end for the compliance review 2019. If the commissioners have any questions, that we will take them.
Honorable Joyner has questions.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I would ask Mr. Ibrahim Sanya that all what have been said this morning is non-compliance. And I want to believe that GPPA came into being to avert a lot of this type of problems. That is, you want to secure the funds of the public before it is being abused, in the sense that here you're talking about it's not in the plan, it's not been inspected, we are not sure of goods being delivered, a lot of host of things that have gone wrong. And I am a bit confused in that if GPPA was brought in to avert such discrepancies to happen, why is it that these things are brought to you after they had done what they have done. That's the case, is it? Now, is there a mechanism within your act or regulations whereby things can be held before it is executed because you are not satisfied with non-compliance of single sourcing, is it request for quotation and all of these things? These things are not being, it seems as if we are just sitting there, I will do what I want to do. And then I will report to you, and then you will castigate me for doing the wrong thing. But what comes out of it? If it's a yearly thing, I do what I want to do, I report, you come and do a review, and you've seen that I have violated a lot of the rules, and nothing comes out of it. For example, let's take, I just took this as an example. You said here a HP computer was purchased for $135,000. A Dell was purchased for $35,000. Here we have not been told what the specifications of these two computers were. And yet still, it is for the use by whoever the originating office demand is for. Because if you have an IT expert and they send you their request for purchase, they would state the specification and everything. Where these things compared, forget about the brand name, but the specifications, where they really looked into to say, this is fit for purpose, and you give your blessing. But I know you didn't, because you are complaining that it didn't go through the normal process of purchasing. But my thinking is, why do you have to complain after the fact the thing has been done? Why not before, so that they can halt it? Something is missing in your authority or in your legislation, that we don't have the authority to stop. We don't have the authority to return goods and services that have been acquired wrongfully. You cannot surcharge whoever has done it. You know, these are the things that would send a warning signal to whoever or the general public as to how I have to do business with a public institution. But if you don't have that stick, it's just that you just complain and you leave it like that. My company can come in tomorrow and do the same thing, and for all we know here, you don't have a list of companies that you have been debarred, you call them? There's nothing like that. So it's free for all. Let's do what we want to do, and that's it. They will complain as long as they much as, like, look, some of the responses, noted. What does noted mean? I know that what you have said is true, but I'm still going to do what I want to do. That's noted. So from your position as director of operations, do you think you need to be empowered to do something that could seriously secure the assets of the public? Do you have any in mind? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable. I think the first thing is to draw your attention to the fact that we have two kinds of review, the prior and the post review. And this is determined by monetary thresholds. If you look at most of the non-compliance that are being reported here, they are almost, all of them are almost, or they all fall within the post-review activities. And post-review is when we go out to institutions, we look at what they have already done, and then probably identify weaknesses here and there, and so on.
Just to cut you short in your answer, in your, not the post review, but in your review, prior review, do you have the authority in reviewing where you have seen that some of these things have not been adhered to? Could you halt it? In your prior review, could you halt whatever request they are sending to you?
In our prior reviews, yes, there are a lot of transactions that when we review them and find out that the procedures are not in line, obviously we stop it. Sometimes we cancel them completely, yes, in prior reviews.
Okay, that leads me to my second question. Your post-review should be based on your prior, isn't it? Your post-review should be based on what you had done prior to the purchases. Or those are two distinct functions?
They are distinct functions.
Then you don't relate your post-review to your prior review.
I'm not sure if you understand the processes.
I do. The prior review is when they are requesting to purchase.
Yes.
The post-review is after they have purchased.
The post-review.
Yes. It's after they have purchased.
Yes, but in most cases, the transactions that we are not subjected to our prior reviews.
No, wait. That even causes some problem. If it's not subjected to, it means when the thresholds have not been met or are met.
If a transaction is within a threshold, for example, the threshold for single source or the threshold for RFQ, institutions are allowed to proceed with those transactions without coming to the authority and then report to us on a monthly basis. But then apart from the monthly reports, we will see the transactions when we go out for our post-reviews. The prior reviews, according to the Act, are transactions that are within a certain threshold, more than the threshold for single source and RFQs, that should be subjected at any stage of the transactions to the authority for our prior review.
Yeah, but that comes back to my main question. And my main question is, what do you do during your post-review, where you have found discrepancies or anomalies in the acts or in the actions of the procuring office to procure goods, that you have several abnormalities in the process that they had used?
Yeah. Mr. Sanya, let me just help you. The post-review is when the procuring authority or institution has procured the goods which were within the threshold. And that's the time when they do their random reviews, they look at whether the procuring institution had followed due process in the transaction. So in the instance where they have not followed due process, they are told that you are not in compliance, you understand, with the process in procuring those particular goods that were within the threshold. But for the prior review, those are transactions that the procuring authority ought to seek their approval before they start transacting. And I think your question is, what can they do? So in the circumstance where it is for prior approval, they can stop the transaction if during the course of the process they find out that there are no due process, the processes are not followed duly. So they could, recommend for the transaction to be cancelled, annulled, or, subject to to corrective measures.
Yeah.
Am I correct?
Yes, yes.
Yes. Do you get it, Mr. Joyner?
I
Okay.
think sorry.
I do,
let him further ask.
but I still think that the whole purpose of GPPA is to avoid monies or contracts being signed without due diligence in it. And what measures do you have in place if that has been found in your post-review? What recourse do you have?
Now, when institutions are found to be non-compliant, like I said earlier, during our reviews, we have two very important meetings. One is the entrance, and the other one is the exit. During the exit meeting, we identify the weaknesses, and we discuss them with them, apart from the before or prior to generating the report. In the report, again, we recommend for certain actions to be taken by the procuring organization itself. But then in addition to that, we generate a report which is laid before the National Assembly. And all these non-compliances that we are talking about will also be reported to the PAC or FPAC of the National Assembly. Now, for the 2022 Act, we have provisions for such violations, where a procuring organization or accounting officer, an accounting officer who is found wanting will be dealt with in accordance with what the law provides for. Of course, in the 2018 Amended Act, it also provides that whoever is found wanting is liable for an imprisonment of not less than 5 years or a fine of $1 million or both. But then to establish fraudulent actions and so on requires some steps to be taken, because according to the Act, if we find something that we think is not according to the law, we can refer it to the Auditor General to do a thorough audit of that particular procurement, these things, and then come out with recommendations. But apart from that, as I said earlier, all our findings, recommendations, and so on are all laid before the National Assembly. So this is how we go about our reviews and our findings.
Can you proceed?
All right. Thank you, sir. So I will now Are you set?
Yeah, sorry, my battery is dead, so I want people to help me with.
While you are, is that your laptop battery?
Yes, it's my laptop.
Yes, so while it has been fixed, we will now probably discuss the Brikama Area Council for the year 2020. So let us just have a discussion probably before the technician will fix your battery charger. Is it okay?
Yes.
Yes, so for Brikama Area Council 2020, I have the 2020 report. I have the 2021 report for the year ended 31st December. You understand? And for most of these compliance reviews, you will see when you go through them, I'm sure you must have been very familiar, in fact, so some of them at a general level, that some of these problems are really problems that you find every year, even though they may say that these problems are being noted, or yes, we are aware of it, and then we'll work on it, we will try to fix it. But again, they keep on overlapping from one year to the other. An example is when you have people acting as the contracts committee, but maybe that there are no formal appointments, evidence of their appointment in writing. Do you normally come across that?
Yes.
So for 2020 and these prevailing years, we also have that in Brikama. And another issue is, most of the times, the lack of specifications when they are procuring certain goods. Do you see that?
Yes.
Are these very frequent occurrences, or are they just once in a while findings that will occur when you conduct these reviews?
They are frequent.
They are very frequent. And of course, what will you say is, I know you have already spoken about this, but then how much of an importance is the fact that specifications must be present on all procurement transactions at a general overview?
Specifications are very important. Why? Because without specifications, a buyer may not be certain of the kind of things that he or she is buying. And at the end of the day, when a good is given to you, you may not be able to verify whether actually this is what I want. And again, evaluation becomes very difficult, because requirements or specifications can also be taken to be an evaluation criteria. This is where you indicate what you wanted. So at the end of the day, when something is supplied, you will be able to compare what you wanted versus what is given to you. So if there are specifications, you can easily get what you want to. But without specifications, how do you verify or ascertain that the good or item given to me is fit for purpose, or the right good is given to me? It's very difficult.
Yes. In fact, for Brikama Area Council as well, another issue which has really been a problem for most of the reviews you have conducted from 2019 to 2020, 2021, that when you find that these procurement activities being conducted on various instances, you see that most of these transactions were not in fact being approved by the contracts committee. So what does that tell you? Who normally will then conduct or approve these transactions? How are they generally approved if they are not being approved as per the required procedure?
Actually, the law provides that every transaction should be approved by the accounting officer.
Yes.
But if that is not the case, probably they have their own internal arrangements that a procurement can be done without the signature of the accounting officer.
Yes.
And I want to believe that this is the case with the Brikama Area Council, because if the accounting officer, who, if you look at the forms, approval of the accounting officer on behalf of the contracts committee in this case. So if the accounting officer approves, the approval is done on behalf of the whole contracts committee members. So if this is not being done, probably their financial sort of transactions are regulated in a way that without the accounting officer, anybody can step in.
But how about if you have a situation where, in fact, the accounting officer is the one who conducted a particular procurement, and it did not follow the requirement. Maybe it was not tabled before the contrast committee. They didn't sit over it. That is why you have, in most instances, there are not, in fact, minutes of meetings of the contrast committee on most of the transactions.
Now, if proper procedures are to be followed, such a transaction should not be paid, because the meetings that we have with, or the trainings that we have with members of the contrast committees and the like, one of the key things that we highlight there is, if, in fact, the law is such that there should be segregation of duties.
Yes.
And one of the fundamentals is to avoid being accounting officer or the accountant or the head of, and at the same time you
conflict
become,
of interest.
Exactly. So if quotations, for example, are collected by the head of the institution, evaluated, and a recommendation is made and sent to the director of finance and the like. Now the question that should be raised is, where is the signature of other members of the contrast committee?
Yes.
And of course, with that action, they should not proceed. He should not effect payment if other signatures or
So
other
then
documentations are lacking.
when you have an individual or individuals conducting on periodical basis procurement, buying goods here and there for supposedly for an institution, in this case for Brikama Area Council, and most times there are no evidence of these rules being followed. In fact, to the grave extent that you can't even see a delivery note or a receipt to back the delivery of such items or goods. I want to ask you, is it very difficult to follow these regulations, this procedure? Is it extremely difficult to follow these regulations?
To me, not difficult. It's not difficult.
At all?
It's not difficult at all.
And so, to a great extent, if someone did not knows about, because one of the requirements are some people who are supposed to be in the specialized procurement unit or the contrast committee must have knowledge of procurement. Is that not correct?
Yes.
And so if they do not follow these regulations to a great extent, there's a possibility that it has been willfully disregarded. And
I think so.
And one of the reasons, would it not be for financial gains?
That's a possibility.
Yes. Now, I know you don't have, your laptop is not on, but nonetheless, we can still discuss some of the specific findings. Do you follow? Now, I will just make reference to, again, chapter 4. It appears as if most of your findings are on chapter 4. Yes, so I will just read out to you some of the findings, and we'll just discuss them briefly. There, on page 4, is the procurement of 1,680 bags of 25 kilograms of rice, at an amount of $967,680 from Blueprint Company Limited. It's a single source. Probably there is no need for you and I to discuss that. In fact, it's way above the threshold.
Yeah.
Because you said, like most of the witnesses said here, the threshold for goods is $20,000. Is that not correct? Now, you also go to the second procurement, which is of photographs, $8,500.
Okay.
Are you there?
So the first one is page 4.
The first one is on page 22.
Page 22.
Yes.
Procurement of rice.
A single source method was used to procure 1,680 bags of 25 kilograms of rice. Do you see that? Page 22.
Okay.
Yes, so the amount is $967,680 from
Yes.
Blueprint Company Limited.
Yes.
Yes, so the amount here, is it below, within or above the threshold for single source?
It's above the single source threshold.
In fact, it is significantly above.
Yes.
And therefore, I see you don't have a non-compliance column. Do you see that? Are you with me?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, but then on the last point of the compliance column, you stated there was minute of the contrast committee meeting as stipulated in GPPR and the GPA Amendment Act 2018.
Yes.
So this was in fact approved by the contrast committee.
Yes.
What is the requirement for the approval of single sourcing when the amount is above the threshold? Needless to say, this is way, way above the threshold, extremely higher than the approved threshold. On what grounds can this?
Anything more than the single source threshold, and you want to use single source, must be approved by the...
Please speak to the microphone.
A transaction that
Yes.
is above the threshold, above a particular threshold, being it single source or RFQ, should be subjected to the authority's approval, not only the contrast committee, but after all approvals by the contrast committees or any accounting officer, it should be sent to the GPPA for prior approval.
Approval.
Yes.
And that was not done in this situation.
I assume it is done. That is why you don't have any non-compliance issue, because there is no non-compliance issue in this case.
Sorry.
Please proceed.
If it was done, would it not have been reflected here that the authority granted approval? If it was done by the authority, would it not have been reflected here during the course of your review?
Well, it is not indicated, but I think that is a suggestion that it should be indicated there. But in this case, we did not indicate that approval is given by the authority. But because they don't have any non-compliance issues, meaning that approval is given by the authority.
Well, I don't think, but enlighten us, because how do you convey your approvals? To begin with, before I go on to my next question, how do you convey your approvals?
Institutions will request for our approval. We will review, and then if they are found to have all the requirements in accordance with what the law provides for, we give approval in writing.
How do you convey it? In writing?
In writing.
So in this instant, so you don't give approval orally?
No.
At all?
Oral approval, no.
Yes.
No.
Okay, so in this instant, we will request for the authorities' written approval of this 967,680 from your institution.
Okay, that's a suggestion that in cases like this,
No,
because we have
no.
seen it as they have complied to it, and they don't have any compliance issue. So we have taken note, and in such cases...
No, we are requesting, the Commission is now requesting for the written approval for this transaction.
Okay.
All right, kindly provide us with that approval. Thank you.
Written approval.
Proceed.
Now, thank you, Madam Chair. Now, I want us to discuss with respect to, I understand that for amounts that exceed 20,000 for goods, single source should not be used. But of course, there are exceptions to that. Now, what are the exceptions?
The exceptions are provided for in the Act, and among the exceptions include 1, in emergency cases, 2, when a particular good or service is provided by one individual only, and there is no alternative to that. You can use single source.
Yes.
Compatibility, that, for example, you buy items, and the next items that you want to buy should have the same features, or should be compatible to the goods that you have originally buy.
So in the application for an approval by any authority,
Yes.
sent to GPPA, do they disclose these exceptions, which will warrant, which will provide an informed decision to your office as to whether?
Yes, we require the procuring organization to justify, and the justification should be in accordance with what, or one of the conditions for the use of single source.
Yes. Now, for this particular transaction, we will come to that. We'll probably request for documentation to see the justification for approval of this this single source, which is extremely above the amount. Is that all right?
Yes.
Good. Now, page 22, on the same page, $8,500 says for single source. Yes, I think on that one you have highlighted that it is within the threshold.
Yeah, that one is with.
And it is in compliance with the lay down rules. Is that correct?
Yes.
Good.
Council,
Please proceed.
Mrs. Sanyang, can you kindly provide to the Commission the procurement plan for this particular procurement, which complied with Regulation 25(1) and Section 29.
Section 29.
That is on page 23. We are requesting for the plan
Okay, the plan that provides for the
Yes.
this particular procurement.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So the last bullet point is a non-compliant issue, right?
There was minutes. The last bullet point under compliance on
Yes.
the same page.
Yes, it's a
No.
non-compliant.
There was minute of the contrast committee
No.
meeting as stipulated.
No, at page 23, the last point.
Page 23, the last point.
Yes, purchase order was not raised by the end user department as stipulated in regulations 28 of this CPPR and section 12(7)B.
Yes,
and
that is
2.
a non-compliance issue.
Thank you. I
Should
just
have
wanted
come
you to
under
confirm that.
non-compliance. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, can you please proceed?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now, that brings us to the end of the 31st December 2020 compliance review for Brikama Area Council. Madam Chairperson, probably there are questions for the commissioners to ask. May I be guided?
Reconfirm from Mr. Sanyang that the procurement of vehicle spare parts, the category is goods, amount is 6,600, and the awarded contractor is Per Mangas Mechanic Shop, and the method of procurement is single source. And it says purchase order was not raised by the end user department as stipulated in the regulation, just like the one above. And we will also further request that you provide us with the plan,
Yes.
which indicates compliance in this particular procurement. And The next one is the procurement of stationaries. Category is goods. The same page 23. Amount is 42,607. The awarded contractor is KGN, and the procurement method is RFQ. And there is, I just want to confirm whether this was a non-compliant issue. The quotations were not approved by the contracts committee.
Yes, that is a non-compliance issue.
And there was no minutes of the contracts committee meeting as stipulated in the GPPR and the GPPA Amendment Act 2018. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the next one is the procurement of excavation and clearing of drains. The category is services. The amount is 450,000. Awarded contractor is Lankaramo Sawane, and the procurement method is RFQ. And the non-compliant issues I want to confirm with you, which is not provided, which is not noted here, but is contained in the report, which is the quotations were not approved by the contracts committee. Is that a non-compliance issue?
Yes, it's a non-compliance issue.
There were no minutes of contracts committee meeting stipulated.
Yes, non-compliance.
And the next one is the goods. Amount is
160.
the procurement of rain suits, boots, and plastic gloves. Category is goods. Amount is 167,500. Awarded contractor is Friendship Enterprise. Procurement method is RFQ. And the non-compliance issues are the quotations were not approved by the contracts committee. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
There were no minutes of the contracts committee meeting.
Yes.
And yes. So all this, they have implication as to the nature of the contract that is awarded and the fact that they did not comply with the rules as stipulated. Am I correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, any other? Yes, Honorable Silla has a question.
Mr. Sanyang,
Yes.
are compliance issues captured in your report? Compliance issues. For example, this procurement activity isn't compliant. Is it captured in your report?
The report that is submitted to the National Assembly.
Yes, that report I mean, right in front of you.
Where are the?
The transaction, for example, it is compliant. Do you capture it?
Yes.
Okay. That's all I wanted to know. And so therefore, all compliant procurements are captured in that report, in front of you.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Council.
Madam Chair, it appears as if it is time for break. May I be advised that whether it is time for break or not?
It is now after 1. We will be rising for prayers and lunch break, but we will be back at sharp 2:30. Yes.
As a
hour,
commission basis.
1 hour break. Thank you.